A lot of people are saying that it is impossible for XRP to get to a $1,000 price target because that would leave XRP with a $57 trillion market cap. In this video, I want to talk about something that a lot of these people ignore, as well as give you a very controversial opinion at the beginning of the video. In this video, we're going to talk about all of that, so make sure to stick around for this whole thing. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you have any good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So I'm going to start out this video and talk about something pretty controversial, and it really goes to a point that I see a lot of people misconstruing. For one reason or another, it feels like there's a huge part of the XRP community who thinks that XRP is one day going to replace the Federal Reserve, and they see the Federal Reserve as an evil entity. And the reason I even went down this line of thinking is because there's actually a very interesting post by John Deaton that I didn't necessarily agree with and thought it was a great topic to cover on this video. Now, there are a lot of things with the United States Federal Reserve, don't get me wrong. But one of the biggest misconceptions I see people making is the possibility of XRP replacing the Federal Reserve. Now, this comes from a lot of people coming out recently and saying that the Federal Reserve should essentially be eliminated because the dollar has lost 90% of its purchasing power over the past couple years. They talk about inflation being a hidden tax and talk about the Federal Reserve essentially being the reason this problem exists. Now, you probably heard me say that and say, okay, Mickle, what do you disagree with? This seems like something that would be easy to get on board with. And there's a couple nuanced points here that I think needed to be pointed out. The first thing is a lot of people are always talking about replacing the current United States dollar with a gold-backed dollar or an XRP-backed dollar or something like XRP in general. But I think one of the core things that these people fail to understand is that the dollar is not meant to be a store of value. It's not meant to hold its value. It's supposed to depreciate over time. The problem with having a currency that appreciates in value in terms of its purchasing power is then no one's going to want to spend it. For the same exact reason none of you want to spend your XRP, if you had the dollar appreciating like any other asset, no one would want to spend their dollars. Now, this would be really good for people saving, but it would be atrocious for the United States economy because no one would want to spend. And because of that, it's really important to understand why the system was created the way it was. The United States dollar is supposed to get devalued over time. It's part of why the United States dollar allows the United States economy to grow the way it does. And at the end of the day, there's a very simple solution around this. Don't hold your wealth in dollars. Don't save and don't hold and preserve wealth in something that's supposed to depreciate over time. The United States purposely inflates the dollar at 2% annually. Now, sometimes they get that right sometimes they get that right on 2%. Sometimes they get it wrong to the upside. Sometimes they get it wrong to the downside, but they aim for 2% inflation. This means they are purposely devaluing the dollar at 2% a year. Now, over 100 years, it makes a lot of sense that the dollar's purchasing power would be down 90% because they're devaluing it 2% over a 100-year period, right? Those kinds of things add up over time. But it's really important to understand that that's the purpose of the system. It's to get people to spend dollars. Dollars are a transactional vehicle. They're not a spending vehicle. And at the end of the day, the Federal Reserve just sits in this position where they're just facilitating the activity and facilitating the spending that Congress creates. The Federal Reserve is really more of a tool than anything else. They're supposed to balance out the United States economy and make sure we're not growing too quickly or growing too slowly, and they alter interest rates in order to do so. But they're not really the ones actually creating money. That's really Congress spending and the Federal Reserve essentially just acting as an arm in the operation. And I just want to point this out because a lot of people talk about XRP replacing the dollar or the dollar being backed by gold or being backed by XRP. And it's so important to understand that it just wouldn't work with the way the United States economy is currently constructed. No one would want to spend their money. No one would want to spend their XRP. No one wants to spend their Bitcoin. And that's because these are assets we hold value in, not spend value. The United States dollar is supposed to be devalued over time because it's a transactional piece of currency, and people are not supposed to save in that transactional piece of currency. They're supposed to save in assets like XRP and Bitcoin over the long run. The Federal Reserve is really just the man in the middle. They're really just facilitating a lot of this activity one way or the other. They're just doing what their mandate was, which was created by Congress. Now, there are a whole bunch of other sketchy things about the Federal Reserve. Trust me, I'm not someone who's sitting here saying, oh, it's some great organization. They've never done anything wrong. There's not a whole bunch of sketchy things. Absolutely not. But I think if you start to wrap your head around exactly why the United States economy was created the way it was and why the dollar is structured as an inflational currency, then you can start to wrap your head around better how the future financial system is going to play out. I don't think there's any scenario anytime soon where the dollar is going to be backed by gold or anything like it, because it would create huge structural problems with how the entire financial system works. You would need something to really break and for the entire system to collapse in order to usher in something like this. And that's just not really the direction we're headed in right now. Right now, things look pretty good. So for the most part, I think that we're going to continue in the same system we're in right now. So how does XRP and these digital assets fit into the equation? Well, even if you have the United States continuing to do the same dollar devaluing they're doing right now, at the end of the day, it still doesn't make sense for the dollar to be on outdated rails. The XRP ledger and XRP act as new assets in this new system to make the financial system work better. Increase liquidity, make transactions go faster, tokenize these assets so they can be more easily tracked and more easily swapped and more easily made liquid to different types of assets, different pairs, and make them expand their capabilities to possibilities that weren't even possible prior to tokenization and the advent of digital currency and digital blockchain. These are things that are very important to understand. It's not so much that I think these cryptocurrency assets are going to upend and rip apart this new system and we're going to have a new form of the dollar and all these different things. I think we're just too early into the cycle. Maybe that happens later down the road, 10, 20, 30 years out, possibly. But I think right now, the main thing these digital platforms are going to do is upgrade the current system, create new sources of liquidity, create new rails, and create new investments and new investment products. This is where I think XRP really fits into the equation, and it's always been Ripple's goal. Ripple's goal is not to replace the Federal Reserve. Ripple's goal is to create new tools, new rails, and new plumbing for these large corporate entities to take advantage of to upgrade their legacy systems. At the end of the day, people like the Federal Reserve and people like all these large banks, they're not really into the tech side of things. They're just used to issuing money, creating structured products, and making and managing quadrillions of dollars. They're not focused on the tech rails, and that's where someone like Ripple is the perfect partner. They come in and help upend and recreate the existing plumbing so it works better for these legacy players. They're not trying to rip everything apart and tear it down. This was the downfall of a lot of early cryptocurrency projects who just wanted to completely disintermediate the system. They lost a lot of credibility doing this, and none of the big players would ever work with them because they're trying to kill them. Ripple took a different approach. They are trying to work within the system and upgrade the technology to a system that, for the most part, is working decently well. It hasn't fallen apart yet. I just think understanding these things will give people a better understanding of where Ripple and XRP fit into the picture. It's not going to be a destruction of the old system, in my opinion. It's going to be incorporating technology that has never existed prior, that these legacy financial institutions don't have the capacity of creating, and working with them to upgrade the old systems onto these new rails to make them more efficient. In my opinion, this is the best place for XRP to sit because it opens up the capability of these financial institutions bringing quadrillions of dollars over from the old rails to the new rails without feeling like there necessarily has to be a fight. It's more of a cooperation, and Ripple gets to be the chosen partner to help this infrastructure upgrade. Now, with that said, I wanted to share this with you because I thought it was a great meme. And what it breaks down is essentially three different classes of people, right? There are the really uneducated people who just scream XRP going to $1,000. The really smart people who think XRP is going to $1,000, and these people in the middle who say, no, XRP can never be $1,000 because a $57 trillion market cap is impossible. And the reason this meme is so funny to me is because it's actually so accurate. It's so funny because a lot of people will just throw out a high price and just not really have any idea of why they're saying a high price. They just want it to be a high price. So they'll say XRP to $1,000. But it's kind of funny because those people, in my opinion, are more right than the people that say $1,000 is impossible because it would be a $57 trillion market cap on XRP. If all the things we talked about are correct, if all the things we talked about earlier in this video were correct, I think it is highly probable we are going to see an extremely high-priced XRP. If we see the Federal Reserve actually issuing their own denominated assets on things like the XRP ledger and XRP being used for settlement, it is going to cause a market cap to be reflected on XRP that doesn't make sense in comparison to the prices we have today. I think one of the easiest ways to comprehend what that looks like and why that's possible is simply by looking at something like Doge. Doge right now is a joke of a cryptocurrency. It was literally created as a joke. And right now, its market cap is close to 31 billion. If Doge can have a $31 billion market cap as a meme and a joke, there is absolutely no reason possible why XRP couldn't have a $51 trillion market cap. It's that simple. If you think that XRP's market cap is going to cap out at 5 to 10 trillion, but you can't give a logical explanation on why Doge is at a $31 billion market cap, the idea of market cap simply isn't something you fully understand. Market cap's an illusion. Right now, XRP's market cap moves tens to $20 billion at a time, with only a couple $100 million being invested into XRP. This means that if we had a steady flow of billions of dollars into XRP, it's very possible that XRP's market cap could be moving hundreds of billions of dollars in a single movement. This means that all the prices we're seeing right now are completely irrelevant because the scales of the inflows we're seeing in these very early days are incomparable to the scale of the inflows we would be seeing if larger financial institutions and more sophisticated investors felt comfortable stepping into this asset class. It's impossible to know exactly what that's going to look like in the future. But the simple fact of the matter is that if XRP could have gotten to where it's gotten to today, with such a small amount of net inflows, and we're sitting at a $179 billion market cap, there is absolutely no reason on mass institutional adoption, XRP couldn't be at a multi-trillion dollar market cap. It's a simple equation of supply and demand. And the more reason there is for financial institutions to hold and create demand on the XRP token, the more they will incorporate it into their large scale inflows as part of their large flow settlement processes, causing billions of dollars of inflows that would cause an equation, cause a movement on XRP's price that is incomprehensible based off the price action we're seeing today. Right now, we are limited to such a small subset of what's possible because it's all we've ever seen. But what we know is what we're seeing right now is driven by extremely small numbers of capital coming into XRP. If XRP's price movements right now were being caused by hundreds of billions of dollars of inflows, look, that would mean it would be extremely hard for XRP to get to any kind of high price. But the fact that XRP is moving the way it's moving right now, with so little capital flowing into the market, should let you guys know that anyone saying these high numbers are impossible have not done the slightest amount of research on how easy it is to move XRP's price and how early we are to this entire cryptocurrency thing playing out. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. And for now, Mickle out.